We're live. Hello. Thanks for joining me. I'm Amanda Call. This is my comic page that I have been working on for a couple of streams now. This is Age of Night, Chapter 27, page 34. This will be the third stream that we're working on this, so there's about 2 hours of work already in it. We started a couple weeks ago with just panel borders, got everything roughed in and drawn over the first couple of streams and the lettering done. The only part of the lettering I did off stream was I did the actual word balloons after I went off air because it's not the most thrilling part of the process. I had already done the actual letters part, so I just did that so that tonight we could jump straight into inking. So I'm going to start with working on the backgrounds, which I normally do with a nib pen. So I've got my Hunt 107 nib. That is a grungy one that I should really probably replace in my Tachikawa wooden holder. I didn't open it yet. I can actually show you the bottle. My Royal Talons Indian ink, which the eye is covered by a smear because I've used most of this bottle already. And that is what we are going to use to start. Get this loaded up a little bit, and I already am making a mess. I don't want the ink on the holder. Hey, Ilya, thanks so much for joining me. All right, that's better. Clean that up a little bit. So this top panel, I'm not really sure yet what I want to do with the background. I'm going to leave it for right now and probably loop back around to it later, kind of get a feel for how the rest of the page looks and decide what I want to do up here. Because there's a lot going on in the backgrounds of these other panels, so I don't want to make the page a little too heavy. Now I've talked so long, my ink is getting gummy in my pen. All right, so one thing that I'm going to do is on this middle tier, if you were watching last time, you saw me, or watched the last stream, you saw me trace this background because this is like the same shot repeated 3 times. So what I like to do when I go ahead and ink those is that I actually work on the same element of it in all 3 of them. Just go across and do that one thing over and over again so that I can keep it pretty consistent. Hey, someone saying, thanks so much for joining me. I just find that works a little bit better than trying to copy everything and be like, okay, well, what did I do here? Okay, well, what did I do here? And just do the same thing over again for each one. Which there was one page where I had I don't know, something like 8 or 9 panels repeated. And I had to do that. And I was like, this was a mistake. Why did I do this? All right, yay, we have a rock. And now I'm going to do that same kind of thing over here, because now I can just be like, oh yeah, below this little lip that I've drawn, it's dark, fading to a little bit lighter, a little bit darker on either end, and a little lighter in the middle, a little lighter near this edge. All right, so now you can see that's pretty similar, like not exactly the same, but close enough. Close enough that at a glance, you're going to be like, yeah, it's the same rock. Hope everybody is doing well, had a good weekend. We keep on getting walloped with storms here in the Northeast. We had one on Friday. We had one on Monday. We are having another one on Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow night into Thursday.
And it just keeps happening. We keep on getting so much snow. It's been a while since I've seen any, so feel free to pass it down to North Carolina. Let me ship you some snow. Yeah, yesterday's storm, it was like, oh, you're going to get 1 to 3 inches of snow. And then we got like 6. It's like, oh, okay. All right, we've got this little viney bit up here. It'd be nice if I could just send snow to people. Be like, I don't want this. Here, you can have it. No, thank you. Gonna pay this forward. Thanks anyway. Whoop. Do I have like a fuzzy on here? I think I have a fuzzy on here. Yeah, there's a piece of fuzz on my pen. That's not good. Oh, there's like 2 pieces of fuzz. That's not good. All right, let me clean that off. The little fuzzies can cause a problem because then they trap ink, like whipping the ink all over when you're trying to use the pen. It's very gross. Gonna go for more of a scumbly, squiggly texture on this rock, just so the rocks don't all look like exactly the same. More scumbling. I'm also like planning for con season this spring, summer, fall. And it's just like, oh my goodness, I got to start thinking about this already. It's January. I don't want to think about this, but I do. I gotta. So yeah, what does everybody have for conventions they like near them? So someone saying says, I used to enjoy winters for the most part when I lived in Massachusetts, though I had a nice fireplace to keep it enjoyable. Definitely having a good heat source makes all the difference. I have a heat pump out here in the studio that just like blows warm air directly on me when I'm at my desk. Pretty great. Makes working out here in the winter much more enjoyable. All right, we've successfully gotten 2 rocks all the way across. Someone saying has never been to a convention. Oh, I've been to so many, but working at most of them. Been to a few attending, but a lot working. And I guess it depends too on like what type of convention you're going to. There's different things to see and do and enjoy. Get some of the ground texture in here. I will say that well, depending on the different types of conventions that you go to, there's lots of different stuff you can do. Most conventions are going to have, your like vendors and like an artist alley where you can buy cool things. Good conventions will have things other than just things to buy. I uh am not really crazy about the conventions that are literally just like, "Hey, come buy some stuff," and there is nothing else on offer. Hey, Hungry. Hey, Spud. Thanks so much for joining me. Talking about getting ready for the convention season and trying to decide what I'm doing for it, which I need to figure out a lot of that like now, even though it doesn't start for a while yet. Is there a good resource for how to go about getting into a convention? Do you Are you looking to exhibit at a convention? Like, are you looking to be an artist alley, or do you just want to like go to attend? What is it that you want to do at said convention? I know that there used to be, I don't know if it's still being kept up with, but there's this guy in my area who ran a website that was like an index for different conventions. So you could put in like what type of event you were looking for, like anime convention or comic book convention or whatever type of convention, and the location. and it acted like a search engine specifically for that. But I don't know if that website is still working because he hasn't.
Seen him in years.
Huh?
Haven't seen him in years.
I know I haven't seen the guy who runs it in years. I don't know if he's like still doing that, if he's still keeping up with it or not. And I mean, granted, for a couple of years there were no conventions happening, so that's fair if he just decided to move on with life. It was called Cosplay Convention Center. I don't know if it's still up and running, but that was really good because you could search like your location, and from there it would direct you to the convention's website. Because like it can be kind of difficult finding one in your area if you're just like, yeah, searching randomly for cities somewhat nearby to where I live. Is there a convention here? Someone saying says, I don't know if I'll ever manage it, but I've got an idea for a comic I'd like to do. If I ever do get it done, I figure I'll need to get a convention or two to show it off. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Actually, just attending a convention and going and wandering around Artist Alley and looking at things that people have created and talking to artists that are exhibiting there is a really great way to just get yourself inspired to get that like push to actually work on what it is you want to do. It's one of my favorite things about going to conventions and exhibiting at conventions is I always leave afterwards like, "Oh, I saw so much cool stuff. Did you see that cool thing that this person is working on? Did you see this cool thing that this person is working on?" It's very inspiring that way. Gets you all jazzed. But yeah, pretty much any convention, if you find one in your area or one that's easy for you to get to for whatever reason, like a lot of times I'll go to conventions where I know I can stay with like a friend or relative and use their place as like a home base so that I can cut down on the expenses, not have to like stay at a hotel and can ship stuff to them if I need to or whatever. Um, if you find one that you want to go to that looks like it would make sense for you to go to, pretty much every convention has just a website where you can go on as an artist to apply for a table, and you can buy an artist alley table, and depending on the size of the show, it's usually first come first serve. Sometimes it's juried, which means you have to like apply and they can be like, yeah, sure, be in our show, or no, we don't really want you in our show. You don't like fit our vibe or whatever. Most of them are just first come first serve. And then the table can cost anywhere from like $100 to like $400 or more. It depends really on the show and many other factors. Some artist alley tables are like exorbitantly expensive and some are very, very affordable. But yeah, you just kind of like fill out the thing on the website and you're like, hey, I'd like to come to your show. And then usually they're like, okay, give us your money. And then you do, and then you're in. it's it's kind of ridiculously easy, honestly, once you figure out what shows you want to go to. The part where I run into trouble of like, what makes sense? What fits in my calendar? What's something easy for me to get to? Will I have somewhere to stay? Will I have some way to transport my stuff? Like, do I have a chance of actually recouping the money that I invest in this? Because like I really don't sweat going to conventions to like make a bunch of money. I don't go in and I'm like, oh, I hope I make like tons of money this weekend. It's just like, I hope I mostly pay for this weekend and have a good time. Because I used to stress myself out so bad with like, oh, am I going to actually, you know, make a bunch of money this weekend or whatever? And a lot of times you just don't, and you can't really help that. Like some of it, to an extent, you can, increase your odds with your table setup and how you market yourself and your product itself being good and everything. But like you can't help it if, for example, the event organizer did a bad job advertising the event and so nobody shows up. Or you know, if it happens to be like the first gorgeous weekend outside that there has been in a month. And so people that were maybe thinking about going to the convention and or even bought tickets to go to the convention then instead went, nah, I'm gonna go to the beach. Like there's just stuff that you can't control. And so worrying too much about making all of the best sales when a lot of that is beyond your control. That's just a way to make yourself crazy. So I try not to do that anymore. But I also do a lot less shows. I'm a lot more picky about what I invest my time and energy in at this point. Oh, hello, little ladybug. Hi. Thanks for flying into my face. This little viney bit over on the right is not like exactly the same in all of these, but I'm just trying to make it look somewhat similar anyway. Yeah, for sure. And you know where to find me on all the various social medias if you have questions. Just, let me know. You can always message me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever and be like, "Hey, I had a more particular question about how this works." I am always more than happy to answer and try to help people out because it is very overwhelming. It can be very daunting trying to wade out into this sort of thing. Let's see. Cor Hernandez says, "You're awesome. Hey, thanks. I found your channel through the Morkborg sessions." Oh, cool. Morkborg is fun. Appreciate you stopping by and watching me work on some art. I'm working on my webcomic right now. This is my webcomic, Age of Night. This page will be up in a few weeks. There's another page that'll be up tomorrow, a different page. And Core says they are currently setting up a campaign in Roll20. Cool. Of Morkborg or of something else? Of Morkborg. Cool. Yeah, that's fun. I always have a good time with that one. Even if I very rarely have a character survive an entire session. In reality, I'm burning my mouth from a the Pop-Tarts, not a Pop-Tart. If you ask some people, you're not supposed to heat them up. You're just supposed to eat them out of the box like some kind of caveman.
You're supposed to eat them?
Yeah, I don't believe you're supposed to eat them at all. I don't think they're actually people food, but that's just me. If I say that too loudly, then Doug will ship another case of them to my house, and I don't really want that. So
I'm perfectly okay with that.
I don't want another case of Pop-Tarts showing up on my doorstep. Especially because if a mysterious box shows up, I'll be all excited and be like, "Ooh, something fun and mysterious." And then if I open it up and it's freaking Pop-Tarts, I'll just be like, "Now I'm disappointed." And heading to the food pantry. Is it a cinnamon brown sugar Pop-Tart? If so, the pain is worth it. I do occasionally make myself my little fancy homemade cottagecore Pop-Tarts, where if I make a pie and I have some leftover crust, then I'll like take some fresh fruit or jam and put it inside the little piece of crust and just like fold it over and put it in the oven on a little pie plate on its own while the other pie is baking. And so then it just comes out like a little, I mean, it's really just a hand pie, but I like to pretend it's like a Pop-Tart. I even take the fork and I do the little crimper on the edge. And then I text Doug and I give him a hard time that I'm having my type of Pop-Tart. Homemade Pop-Tart, fancy homemade Pop-Tart. Yep. That's how I roll. I wouldn't say that I eat like no processed food, but I eat very little processed food. And I certainly don't eat processed food as like a meal. Like I'll eat snacks, but I don't tend to eat super processed food as just like, oh, I'm gonna have a Pop-Tart for breakfast. It's like that's not breakfast. What is that? Try to avoid having processed food be like a dietary staple for me. If that makes sense. A snickerdoodle. Oh, it's a snickerdoodle Pop-Tart. Well, that's neat. It's a neat flavor for a Pop-Tart. I mean, it's essentially kind of a brown sugar cinnamon, I guess, but probably a little different. All right, we're getting there. We're making progress on this. It's vegan. I mean, so much processed food. If I stopped eating now, I'd live a month from the surplus preservatives. That's great. From the Blade Runner? Possibly. I did play Blade Runner as well. I'm on Doug's show a lot, honestly, so could be any one of those. We did Blade Runner. We've done Mork Bork many, many times. We've done Alien a bunch of times. All sorts of stuff. Remember the comments about noodles? Oh, yes. I remember that. Okay, I got some more droopy vines over here. We're getting there on these, on this tier. Like, I think the effect ends up being pretty cool when you have like just this kind of static situation, but oh my goodness, doing these is just such a pain. Doing them the way I do them is a pain. It's probably not that bad if you make comics like you live in this century instead of like some kind of medieval peasant like I do them. Make my own comic publishing house, Medieval Peasant Comics. Did the campaign ever get more noodles? We only did 2 sessions. I don't remember if we did more noodles or not in the second session. I don't think we did. We were coming up with some like very convoluted way to try to solve the plot, and then the plot just like kind of attacked us because we were spending too long making absurd plans like RPG groups do. Okay, but what if we did this elaborate plot that makes no actual sense and would take forever? Well, this happens instead. Oh, okay. I guess we're gonna go react to that then. You okay over there?
No.
Like, actually, no?
Well, I mean, I'm physically fine.
Okay. My husband's making weird noises in the corner.
Because I tipped over one of my pants.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Someone saying asks, for your comic, did you start the idea from the end point and work out how and where your characters would develop to meet that end event, or did you just wing it? I definitely was just winging it in the very beginning. Like I had a vague idea, but that didn't last long. It was pretty clear pretty early on where it wanted to go. And so then I've kind of from very early on, I had a basic idea of where we were going. And then the closer I've gotten to it at any point, I've firmed that idea up more and more. So it's kind of like, and I've left it a little bit, like I leave it a little bit vague so that I can, as I get closer to it, I still have room to like come up with something different, to have things occur to me and be like, oh, well, actually, I think it'd be cool if I did it this way instead. But I have had the ending more or less figured out for a long, long time now. And I do think it's important when you're doing like a long form work that you figure out what that ending is going to be sooner rather than later so that you can be moving towards it in ways that make sense. So your story doesn't just suddenly like change direction at the last minute to get to an end, if that makes sense. I like older style Conan still rather than the pop art comics. MB consequences prove death. Yeah. And Conan's been a long time favorite of mine. Savage Sword. Oh, I love Savage Sword of Conan. I've got a bunch of that collected. Love Conan. Conan, Xenozoic Tales, Prince Valiant, all of that kind of stuff. That art style, so good. Oh, yeah, he knocked over some paint, so he's over there cleaning now. That's what all the weird noises were about. He's painting his miniatures and he knocked over a pot of paint. Core hopes you're okay over there.
I I am. I just spelt a bunch of contrast.
Oh no. Oh no, that stuff is nasty too. Contrast paint. Ugh.
Well, it's also expensive.
It is also expensive, yes.
Also expensive.
It's also got that weird, like, shellacky type stuff in it, so you don't want that drying on things.
I tried to clean it up as best I could. But...
I forget what I was talking about. Oh yeah, having a plan. So yeah, I've known what the ending is gonna be in a vague sense of like, we're gonna end up here and we're gonna make sure that this, that, and the other happens somewhere along the way. And then like it's pretty much like by volume. So I'm almost done with volume 4. And then volume 5 is gonna be the last one, which is coming up next. Which is wild to me because I do know how long I want it to be. And so like at the beginning of volume 4, which was, a few years ago at this point, because comics take forever, I kind of just like sat down and wrote out a little outline of like, this is basically what I want to have happen in this volume. And so like it's 7 chapters in each volume. So it's like, okay, chapter 22, this is basically what's going to happen. Like in like a 1 or 2 sentence type summary of like chapter 22, this happens. Chapter 23, this happens, and so on, so that I know overall what's going on. And then as I get to each chapter, I write a more detailed breakdown and then write the script. And so that leaves me some room to like have things kind of come up because I do revisit that usually about halfway through the volume. I'll realize that I did not get as far as I thought in some areas, or I got farther than I thought in others, thought I would in others, because once you actually start writing, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was actually went a lot faster than I thought or whatever. And then, go through each one and kind of revise it from there. So I'm a little bit terrified because I have to start outlining the final arc of the story. And I'm like, well, hope I didn't mess anything up leading up to this point, because now I gotta wrap it up. Someone says I'm having trouble settling on my character's backstory. Oh yeah, so the backstory for some of the characters has kind of, I wouldn't say like changed a lot, but there have been some key things that as I've been writing, I realized like, oh, it would make so much more sense if this is what happened in their past, or, this is something that also happened to them at some point, and it just makes more like thematic sense. But if you don't info dump everything at the beginning, which you shouldn't anyway, because that's just kind of boring, and you just leave some space open for your characters to later be like, have a flashback, or to mention, oh yeah, this thing happened to me before, or whatever, then that gives you that flexibility to discover things about your story as you go and kind of put them in as you go. Kind of feel like if I had a goal for the character has to meet, I might be able to force myself into picking a backstory idea that meets it. Yeah, that could definitely help. Part of what I like about things like playing RPGs too is that you get a lot of practice with like, okay, I have a vague character concept. My character is this type of person with these basic motivations. And then, this thing happens to them. How do they react? And then you just make up how they react in the moment. And then you can decide, like, well, did that reaction make sense? What would be the reason this reaction would make sense? It's a really useful like writing exercise to understand why characters do some of the things they do. So just kind of literally put yourself in a character's position. Because you don't necessarily need to have like their full backstory figured out. You could just kind of be like, well, I know I want them to be this type of person. I know I want them to be pursuing this goal, and, just kind of let things unfold from there. Which doesn't always work for everybody. Some people very much are not comfortable getting going on anything until they're like, no, I have everything completely figured out, that's fair. Because it's also very easy to paint yourself into a corner if you don't have everything planned out. Okay. We've got some key vines. Make motivation from past trauma. Yeah, that's definitely a way that you can do it. Oh, I need to clean that. That's getting all gunky. I haven't cleaned that in a minute. It's getting gunky. It's already 8:42 and I haven't even finished this series of 3 panels. Good grief. All right. We've got the viney curtain situation going on here. Let's see how much of this we can get done. Yeah. So how did we get all on this subject? I forget. What was I talking about a while ago? Oh yeah, I was talking about conventions a while ago. I don't have anything coming up for a while because we're kind of in the off season right now. Trying to plan my on season. I think the next event that I'm going to be present at is going to be PAX East, but I'm not representing myself at PAX East. I'm just going to be working in the Free League booth, which is always a good time. It's a good crew. And then I think the first convention where I'm going to be tabling as of right now is going to be the Maine Comic and Toy Con, which is at the end of April in Portland, Maine. I don't think I have anything else before then. Okay. Hey, look, I got one one panel done. Hooray. Oh my goodness. Only taking me 45 minutes, but I've got one panel done. To be fair, I'm pretty close to having a couple others done too. It's just when you work on 3 panels at once, it's this is what tends to happen is it moves a little bit slowly. Any major faux pas with conventions that should be avoided? Ooh. As an artist, just don't be nasty. If you're as an exhibitor, don't compare your work to others by putting others down. Be cognizant of the convention's rules regarding things like fan art and other kinds of like IP rules. And try to be a good neighbor. So like if you're exhibiting and you're right next to you're almost always like right up on top of each other. You have other artist tables right next to you or right behind you or anything. Just try to make sure that you're a good neighbor. Be careful not to run into your neighbor's displays and don't have your displays or your stuff taking over their space. If someone is standing in front of your neighbor's table and clearly looking at their stuff, don't like steal them from your neighbor's table and be like, "Oh, hey, you should look at my stuff instead." I really wish that these were not things that I've actually seen happen. Unfortunately, I have. Seems obvious, but I've seen people do it. Very weird behavior. As an attendee, a lot of the same kind of things. Try not to be like, you can, if you're not interested in something, then you can just be like, you can just kind of like nod at them and move on. You don't have to say like, "Oh, I'm good. I don't like this," or make some other kind of unsolicited, uncalled for comment. Don't put your food or drinks on top of anybody's merchandise. I do specifically keep a section of my table open with no merchandise on it because people almost always have something in their hands. So it's like, if people almost always have like a drink or a snack or a bag or something in their hands. So I try to leave part of my table open so that if they want to like pick up a comic and look through it, they have somewhere to put their stuff down. And I make sure to tell them, like, yes, you can put it right here. But if somebody does not have space open on their table, don't like put your drink on their comics. Fan art, how do I mean? So, oh boy. So it is technically not legal to sell prints of fan art. So even if you drew it, if it's art of other characters that you do not own the rights to. So be this like an anime character or a Disney character or a video game character, whatever, if it's not your intellectual property, if it is not something you created, then technically it is under US copyright law illegal for you to sell those because you are making a commercial product with somebody else's intellectual property. Now, a lot of people sell fan art. They sell artwork that they have drawn of characters that they do not own the IP to. You see a lot of this at a lot of conventions. Some and a lot and most conventions. Well, I don't know. It changes. It's been changing a lot in recent years. A lot of conventions are like they just don't really notice. They don't care, or rather, they don't care. They don't police it. They're like, you know what? We have our copyright disclaimer in the artist's agreement, and we're just gonna look the other way, and we're not gonna worry about it. Some venues have, and some events have rules about either not allowing fan art or only allowing like a certain percentage of what you sell to be fan art. So basically, you just want to be aware of what those rules are. Because I know a lot of people, pretty much all they sell at conventions is prints of fan art. So, yeah, what I mean by fan art is artwork that you created, but the characters that you made it of do not belong to you. Like I said, technically, in all circumstances, not allowed under US copyright with very few exceptions. Stuff like parodies, but if you're just doing like a mashup, it's not actually covered by parody. It's not covered by fair use. That's a common misconception. Um, yeah, but a lot of conventions don't care because they know that that's what a lot of the business and artist alley is, but some conventions do care and you want to make sure you're abiding by those rules. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And people get some people are very much just like, "Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I know that it's technically not legal, but this is what I enjoy doing and people buy it, so whatever." And that's fine. I respect that. Uh, I respect just acknowledging the reality of the situation. Some people get very defensive and are like, "I can totally do this. It's totally fine. You can't tell me I can't." And it's like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you it's not actually legal." Like that's what drives me nuts when people try to argue with me as if I don't understand IP law, and it's like, I do though. Like just admit that what you're doing is not actually kosher. It's not actually, like, on the up and up legally. It's okay. Like, just admit it. You don't need to conduct these create these elaborate fantasies in your head wherein it is somehow okay. I've wondered about that because I've seen artists drawing things like Spider-Man for others. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't make fan art prints to sell. I will do like commissions, like private commissions where someone's like, I want a piece of artwork that I'm going to buy bespoke from you and I'm going to put it in on the wall in my office and it's just going to be mine to look at forever. And it's like technically this is still against copyright, but I also am not super worried about it in that case, you know. And like that's if you want if y- if I if it seems like I'm being hypocritical in that situation, I mean, that's fine. I'm open to debate on that matter. but like, I don't really mind if someone wants one particular thing, but even then I really don't do a lot of that kind of work. Most of the commissions that I do for people tend to be of their like RPG characters or their original characters or stuff like that. But yeah, it says, I imagine the only sales that should be going on there should be done by those who have exhibit tables. Yes. Yeah, you need to have an actual like exhibitor space, an artist alley space, or a vendor space of however the convention does it in order to be selling things. That being said, though, if you go to a convention as an attendee and you bring like some prints or stickers or comics or whatever, and you want to trade with people, a lot of artists are open to trade or are fine if you just want to like give them something. And that's a good way to just like make connections and, meet people and show them your work without having to, you still have to make the product that you're giving them, but you don't have to like buy a table and be stuck with it all weekend. But also if you're just offering like a trade, then, if you're offering a trade and not just giving it to somebody, then be prepared that some people will be like, no, I don't want to trade. Like that could easily happen. Oh my gosh, it's almost 9:00. So I'm just going to say real quick, I'm going to start working on this and I'm going to say the YouTube things real quick before we run out of time. I'm Amanda Call. This is my YouTube channel. I do these live streams every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to watch me work on comics, like next week, I'm going to still be working on this page because it's taken me a while because there's a lot going on here, but we're making some very nice progress. If you want to watch me work on this comic some more and other comics some more, then you should definitely subscribe, like this video, tell your friends, do the YouTube things. You can read this comic at ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT.com. It updates every Wednesday. Well, just about every Wednesday. Just like I go live every Tuesday, or just about every Tuesday, unless something in my life is on fire or I'm sick or something. But I'm pretty consistent. You can read all of Age of Night for free at ageofnight.com. You can also help support me if you would like at patreon.com/ageofnight. Patrons get all of their comic pages a week early and other cool behind the scenes stuff. You can also buy copies of Age of Night from Skirmishers, skirmisher.com, Drive-Thru RPG, Drive-Thru Fiction, and Drive-Thru Comics, as well as physical paperbacks on Amazon. Or from me at a convention, but I won't be at a convention until like April, which is what we got onto this subject from. Someone says, so if you're trying for some exposure, it'd be okay to have some free handouts as long as you're not trying to push them on people. Absolutely. Yeah. If you just want to be like, hey, would you like to check out my comic? Here is a free copy. Most people are like, yeah, cool. That sounds great. If they decline it, then just be like, okay, thanks anyway, but yeah, if you want to just like give people free copies of your comic, yeah, most people are just like, yeah, that sounds great. Thanks. Strike up a conversation, ask them about their comic, take their card, that sort of thing. But generally, yeah, it's totally within the bounds of normal convention etiquette to just be like, here, would you like a copy of my comic? All right, that is going to do it for this evening. I think we did get this. I spent an hour working on these 3 panels, but I think you can tell I spent an hour working on these 3 panels. So I don't feel terrible about that. Hopefully we get a little farther next week. All of these little vines and rocks take a long time. It's a lot of texture going on there. Yeah, absolutely. Someone's saying, like I said, if you want to send me more questions on any of the other social medias, that's totally fine. I'm always willing to help people out. It's kind of overwhelming trying to get into the comics world. So any help that I can provide, I'm more than happy to. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with me. I will see you next time. Bye.